الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Good day, everyone. As the prospects for Kamala Harris winning the presidency grow by the day, many Arab Americans are wondering if she will bring changes to U.S. policies in the Middle East, particularly in Gaza. Plus, how does she plan to achieve permanent peace in the region? To discuss these and other related issues, we have with us three distinguished guests and experts. Journalist Said Arikat, Dr. Bishara Bahbah, and journalist Hanan Daqqa. Now, before we get started, I have two program notes. Let me first identify our guests. Mr. Said Arikat is a long-time Washington-based Palestinian journalist. Dr. Bahbah is the national chair of Arab Americans for Trump. And Ms. Hanan Daqqa is an independent multimedia journalist and author. Before we get started, let me just tell you about two program notes. One is that we are coming to you not just on radio, but also by video on Zoom. So if you go to the Facebook page of US Arab Radio, you will be able to watch us in video too. And the second is I encourage my guests to interact with one another without interruption, without interrupting each other. My first question goes to all my three guests, distinguished experts, and let's start with Mr. Arikat. Now, Mr. Arikat and all other guests included too, Kamala Harris said after meeting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, told him that she will not be silent about the situation in Gaza, humanitarian situation in Gaza, and two, that she supports the two-state solution. Now, as I said, we'll start with Mr. Arikat. Do you expect changes under Harris, and what are such changes?
Yes, good morning, Atef. Good morning, everyone. A disclosure, I'm not really a election expert. My beat is foreign policy. But let me take a crack at this anyway. I think that Kamala Harris, as the Vice President of the United States of America, the Vice President for President Biden, is definitely in cahoots with his policy. His policy of total support to Israel, for the past 10 months, the genocide, indeed, of the Palestinians. So, this policy is a policy that has shown total enmity towards the Palestinians, total disregard to their human right to their lives, indeed, to the destruction, the intent to give Israel all it wants to continue its destructive campaign. So I don't have a great deal of faith that what we will see in the future is somewhat different than Biden. Having said that, though, I must point out that Ms. Harris tried to distinguish herself from Biden, tried to distance herself. She showed a little bit of sensitivity to Arab American sentiments and so on, issued statements over the months that play into the sort of the agony and anguish of Arab Americans all across. You talked about Palestinian human rights, their need to survive, their need to go on, the need to pay lip service really to a two-state solution. Now you have to look at it also in terms of what Donald Trump has been saying all along. I mean, Donald Trump has shown total disregard to Palestinian lives. He's just the other day he spoke to Jewish Americans from Syrian descent in New Jersey, and he was bragging how he gave Israel the Golan Heights without them even asking for it. He gave them Jerusalem without them even asking for it. He talked about how he gives total support to Israel. He called on them to finish the job. I mean, he talks in terms of final question of solutions. So this is the kind of panoramic view that Arab Americans, when they approach this issue, must take into consideration. For sure, Arab Americans, as a voting bloc, they stand in opposition to everything that Mr. Trump, or at least I speak about myself, my family, those who have been involved Americans as far as voting and donating money and so on are concerned, have always been really in the Democratic camp. So, that full disclosure. But the truth is that Donald Trump stands against anything that is remotely close to human rights, the rights of Arab Americans. We know his position, on banning Muslims. All these positions are well known. I don't think he's likely to change, and I think that Arab Americans ought to approach the next election through this prism.
Ms. Hanan Daqqa, the same question.
Yes, for me, I feel like Kamala Harris is definitely, to me, she is just another face of the establishment. I do respect Trump more than I do respect the establishment, but even though I never voted for Trump, and his rhetoric and his ignorance of Islam is something that scares me. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, I feel like she never been other than the establishment. And it's clear that the position of the American, like the United States, is a two-state solution. And I don't think she will add anything different. Maybe the language will be less, like in her language, maybe she will use a more considerate language, but her position will align with what Biden did, in my opinion. And the other thing is, even though the United States is pushing for the two-state solutions, it's clear to all of us that Israel does not want that. So, and it looks like there is no influence, there is no impact. Like the vision of the United States is not aligning with what Israel wants to do. And so I don't see that she can do much.
Okay, Dr. Bahbah.
Well, I do agree with my fellow guests here that Kamala Harris's policies will probably be relatively identical to the Biden administration's policies, or Biden himself. She has not proclaimed that she's a Zionist, unlike Biden. But overall, I see a continuation of Biden's policies. Yes, I agree with my guests that she has emphasized the human aspect or human suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza. But at the same time, I see those as crocodile tears, Who has the blood of Palestinians on their hands in Gaza? It is the Biden administration, and that includes Kamala Harris. 39,000 people killed, over 91,000 injured. That's what we have to look at. On one hand, it's not just words. We have to look at the actions and what has transpired. The Biden-Harris administration has enabled a genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And that cannot be forgotten or forgiven from my perspective. So I do not see a different foreign policy with regard to the Israel-Palestine question when it comes to Kamala Harris. Now, on the other hand, I understand my friend Said's concerns regarding Trump, but I have been relatively close to the Trump camp, and I even met President Trump about less than 2 weeks ago. And in our conversation, we discussed the issue of the need for peace in the Middle East. And I asked the president, I said, we need peace in the Middle East based on a two-state solution. And his reply to me was 100%, 100%. He agreed fully with that statement. Now, that is one thing. Trump has evolved in terms of his perception of the Israel-Palestine question. Yes, he did the infamous so-called 90-day Muslim ban to the United States and so on. But what transpired was really a system of extended vetting of people coming from certain countries that had internal turmoil. Now, we have not heard Trump in this campaign season talk about such a thing as a Muslim ban, because in everybody's view that I've talked to in the Trump camp, it was a misunderstood concept that there is no such thing as a Muslim ban. I mean, we're talking about the evolving Trump. Secondly, Trump has issued a statement on June 4th on his website, Truth Social. And he said effectively that he wanted to see an end to the wars in the Middle East. And, honestly, I have seen that statement before it was issued. And that was intended to mean an end to the war in Gaza. Now, his verbiage is not necessarily the most sophisticated in that, instead of saying that he wants an immediate end to the war in Gaza, he tends to say, finish it, and so, but from my understanding and working with him and Dr. Masad Boulos, who is Tiffany Trump's father-in-law, and who sees him on a regular basis, as well as Ambassador Richard Grenell, Trump is calling for an end to the war in Gaza, period. And he said that had he been president, the war would not have happened. The second thing is when Trump announced that Netanyahu was going to go visit him in Mar-a-Lago, he said, I look forward to visiting with Bibi Netanyahu. I look more forward to achieving peace in the Middle East. And during that announcement, he published a letter that he had exchanged with President Mahmoud Abbas, in which he essentially states that everything will be good, meaning that the path that for peace will happen under Trump. When we talked to with Ambassador Gurnell as well as Dr. Masad Boulos, and in meetings in Michigan that we held over the past few months, when pushed regarding the issue of the peace process, they both said that the peace process that he envisions is going to lead to a two-state solution. Now, in my view, and from what I know directly from interacting with the president as well as with his close associates, that he wants to pursue a two-state solution.
Now, Dr. Bahbah,
Yes.
we are going to talk in more detail
Sure.
about Mr. Trump, but we were just focused on in my first question about Harris. And before I move on to my next question and take a commercial break, I want to invite Mr. Arikat or Ms. Daqqa if they have a comment on what they heard so far.
Yeah, I mean, look, with all due respect to my friend Bishara, any voter, not only Arab American voters, but any voter indeed. I mean, they look at their values when they approach this election. They look at their values, they look at their priorities, and so on. I mean, everything that the Republican Party has espoused and adopted and says, let alone all the domestic issues that we totally disagree with, but everything they have done, and Mr. Trump is the head of the party. Everything that they have done is despicably anti-Arab, despicably anti-Palestinian. They are calling for the annihilation of the Palestinian. Lindsey Graham called for the annihilation of the Palestinian by using whatever means and weapons and so on Israel could use in Gaza against the defenseless population. One after the other. We saw this circus last Wednesday on the 24th of July in the U.S. Congress. It is truly despicable. I don't see how any decent human being, let alone Arab, could ever vote for a Republican Party that is so racist, that is so anti-Arab, that is so anti-Palestinian, that is so anti-woman, that is so anti all the minority groups and so on. So you can't just say that Trump is going to do this. We know for sure that Trump is a racist. He's against all groups. But he probably looks even more loathsomely towards Arab American and Palestinian Americans and so on. So that is his history. That is his record. You cannot argue with his record. So when you look at the election, you have to take all that into consideration.
Now, allow me to take a quick break, and when we come back, I will ask Ms. Daqqa about her call on Mr. Trump to learn more about Islam. I will ask her to explain why, and also if she has any comment about what she heard so far. After the break.
Hey, Michigan drivers. Are you sending or answering group chats behind the wheel? Checking emails at the light? Calling family or friends on the commute? Michigan's hands-free law makes it illegal to manually use electronic devices while behind the wheel of a vehicle. Breaking the law could mean fines or even community service. Go hands-free, just drive. It's the law. Learn more at michigan.gov/distracted driving. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most. And make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493. At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to Radio Baladi. We are discussing Kamala Harris and any changes, potential changes that she might bring to U.S. policies in the Middle East. And I want to ask Hanan Daqqa now. Hanan, in your one of your articles, you call on Mr. Trump to learn more about Islam. Explain why, but you can also feel free to comment on what you heard so far.
Thank you. For me, one word that the guest mentioned about Trump, that he's evolving, and I do see that. And I do see that he is someone who evolves. So that's why I have some hope. But let me say that his fear of Islam or his ignorance of Islam comes probably from the Republican Party that he's surrounded with. But I do see him as someone different than the Republican Party. I see he's more of a common sense leader. And following his, everything he says or said in the past about fake news, he was probably the one to uncover this. That's something that the public never really, found the right word to describe the manipulation of the media, fake news. And then also his stand on abortion is really interesting. When you hear the attacks on him or on abortion, you think it's really like nonsense. But when you hear his position, you see how big of a difference his position from what the media is trying to say. He just wants to give people again, it's common sense. It's the right thing to do. It's not that he's not respecting women's choice or women's authority over their body. I think it's just common sense. As women, we have our body has a sacred level of creating another human level, a human being. So it's a different issue. The other thing is when he talked even about China virus, everyone attacked him and he thought he's racist. But after, in a few, probably a year ago, it was in the news. This virus really originated from China. When he talked about the NATO, how useless it is, it's right. We see now like that many leaders talk about this. When he talked about nuclear weapons and the threat as a major threat. So I feel like he's always talking about common sense. And he's always in touch with the human in himself. And that's what I respect and I see in him. But his ignorance of Islam is still there. And maybe it comes from the Republican Party. In one of his interviews, he said, Islam hates us. And that's what he thinks. But again, I mean, I'm not sure how he thinks that. He probably never read the Quran. And I see many Americans, somehow they are totally changed and surprised when they read the Quran. And that's my invitation to him. Please read the Quran. I recommended the original copy of Abdullah Yusuf Ali because it's the most spiritual, artistic, musical explanation of what the Quran is. So that was my article about.
Okay. So you don't need to say any more about why you think he should learn more about Islam. But Dr. Bahbah, you were in the middle of telling us about to justify some of the policies that Mr. Trump pursued while in office. But to pick up from where you left off, Mr. Trump gave Jerusalem away to Israel for nothing in return. And he focused on a normalization between Israel and some Arab countries. What do you expect him to do now if he returns to the White House? Specifics.
First of all, I mean, he would see an end to the war in Gaza. That's one thing. Secondly, he said that he would like to pursue peace in the Middle East, leading to a two-state solution. Thirdly, he has indicated to us, those who are close, that there is no such thing as a Muslim ban. And if you notice that this issue has not been raised during this campaign, during his speech at the convention, if you note, he did not mention the word Palestinian, Muslim, or Hamas, and that is quite a change in his attitude to the positive toward the Arab and Muslim worlds. He even said that he would grant all foreign students graduating from the United States a green card. He indicated that he is ready to engage the Palestinians the moment that he will be elected. And he even said that he is willing to engage Iran diplomatically because he views Iran as a regional power. And he understands that the Bush administration got us into the war with Iraq based on extremely faulty and made up accusations that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He does not want to see the United States engage in a war with a regional power like Iran, I'm sorry. So now comparing those positions with the positions of the Biden-Harris administration, one, you can't compare putting a plaque in Jerusalem on the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem saying the U.S. embassy to the killing of 39,000 Palestinians. I mean, I cannot fathom the idea of anybody voting for the Biden-Harris administration or Harris, because she is being complicit. Her hands are bloodied with our people's blood. you know. So there is no comparison. Now, even when he said that he recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, he never discounted the idea that there would be that there could be a Palestinian capital in East Jerusalem. So what I'm looking for here is if we support a Biden-Harris administration, we're going to see the continuation of what is going on right now, which is an absolute disaster for the people in the Middle East and for us as Arab Americans. Now, if we look at Trump, an evolving Trump, in an open-minded manner, we're going to see a different change in the approach to the Middle East peace process. And that's really the core issue. He now understands that the core issue in the Middle East is the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, I'm sorry, I agree with my friend Said that Congress has acted absolutely ridiculously and shamefully in the way they invited and greeted Netanyahu. I mean, that's disgusting from my perspective. It is absolutely disgusting. But I can tell you that Trump controls not only his campaign, he also controls the party. And when he comes to power, if he says, I want this done, that the Congress will have to do it. And this is the hope that I'm betting on, is that he will be a strong leader. He now understands the core issues, and things will change in a fundamental way from what we are seeing right now under the Biden-Harris administration.
Now, allow me to take another quick break, and when we come back, I will ask Mr. Arikat if Mr. Netanyahu's political fate, future, depends on who will be in the White House next January, after the break.
Ziyad brand, quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
In a perfect world, everyone would be a perfect driver.
Hands at 9 and 3, everyone.
9 and 3. Everyone would follow all the rules.
Please, go ahead and merge. I'll make room.
Thank you, fellow driver.
And nothing unexpected would ever happen. Even the squirrels would know the right time to safely cross the road. In this perfect world, you wouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. But in case you hadn't noticed, we don't live in a perfect world. About 1,000 people in Michigan die each year in vehicle crashes, and thousands more are injured. Wearing your seatbelt reduces your risk of death in a crash by 45% in a car and by 60% in a pickup truck. So until we find a perfect world to drive in, make our imperfect world safer by buckling up. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bonham, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to Radio Baladi. We are discussing Kamala Harris and the potential changes if she wins in her policies in the Middle East. My question, as I said earlier, goes to Mr. Arikat. Do you think, Mr. Arikat, that the political future or fate of Mr. Prime Minister Netanyahu depends on who will be in the White House in January?
No. I mean, in simple terms, no, it will not. But let me just respond to some of the points that Bishara raised. Now, I'm not one to suggest that Arab Americans and Palestinian Americans in particular ought to vote to whoever based on the Palestinian issue. I mean, there are other issues that should concern them. And, you know, I'm a lefty, so I have always had, you know, a great deal of animosity, I admit, towards the Republicans all my life. So there's nothing new in that. But let's look at what he said on the Palestinian issue. First of all, Trump already has a plan for the Palestinians. It is called the deal of the century. He's not going to back away from that. We know that the deal of the century is designed to liquidate the Palestinian issue, period. He's the guy that came up with the initiative to, let's say, to stop supporting UNRWA, for instance. He's the guy that said, you know, based on the advice of, you know, despicable Zionists and so on in this country, that Palestinian refugees number about 30,000 people. That's it. That the others have died and so on. He's the guy that basically in the debate used the word Palestinian as a slur. You know, he's the guy that used the word Palestinians only last week as a slur. He's the person that told Syrian Jews or Jews, you know, that in New Jersey, they're all the real estate developers and so on. And that's not only last week. He told them how he would, his total support for Israel is unwavering. He will continue to do that. That Bibi Netanyahu is his buddy. We saw the dynamics between Netanyahu and Trump and Mar-a-Lago. He's always flaunting that Ivanka's husband is Jewish and so on, and we know the relationship between Kushner and Netanyahu. He always talked about his you know, as if, you know, to show his credentials and so on. I'm not suggesting, you know, that quite the contrary. I think most Jewish Americans are progressive. They stand on the side of the Palestinian people and all this. So, but everything he has done, every policy change, and you know, I'm not someone who respects Trump, you know, as someone that holds any kind of intellectual capacity. His attention span is short, and just to use what he said the other day, he said, you know, when it came to the Golan Heights, I asked someone, you know, give me synopsis in 5 minutes, and I took my decision in a minute. So he's not someone who understands details and so on. He's been, you know, pardon my expression, but he's been a useful idiot for those who want the tax breaks, for those who want to, as my friend said, you know, to have total control over the bodies of women and so on. As someone who stacked the Supreme Court with despicable right-wingers and so on that will continue to haunt young Arab Americans for the next 30 years and so on. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. You can't say Trump has changed. Trump has changed. Trump has not changed. Trump is Trump. Trump will continue to look down on the Palestinians. He probably considers them to be some sort of excess humanity and so on. This is the guy that said he wanted to deport all those that demonstrate for Palestine. He said that plainly and clearly. You can't change this by saying, well, he has a son-in-law who is Lebanese. Big deal. Or he's talked to someone who's a Palestinian. Big deal. You know, so this is someone who is innately anti-Arab, innately anti-Muslim, innately anti-Palestinian, innately anti-Black, innately anti-woman. You know, all these things have to be taken into consideration. And you cannot change that by having some sort of a wishful thinking. It's not. It's not.
Dr. Bahbah, any comment?
Yes. I mean, I respect my friend Said for admitting that he's a lefty. You know, I just for to tell you where I come till 4 or 5 months ago. But seeing what the Harris-Biden administration has done, I mean, to me, it's unimaginable to compare the Biden administration's and Harris's administration's policies and complicity in the genocide against our people with some statements issued by Trump. Now, with regard to the so-called deal of the century, they have already, admitted the Trump camp, and I know it has not been put out publicly that there were serious issues with the so-called deal of the century in terms of content and execution. And during this election cycle, there has been no mention of such a thing as deal of the century. You know, the fact we should not belittle the fact that he has an Arab American son-in-law. We always talk about Jared Kushner as his Jewish son-in-law, but we cannot belittle the fact that he has an Arab American son-in-law. This son-in-law and his father are close to the president, know the issue, they know the issues that affect our community and are important to our community. And also, when it comes to the issue of Gaza, for example, Mr. Trump has been told time and time again that the number one concern among Arab and Muslim voters in the United States is the issue of Gaza. That is based also on the poll that was done by the Arab American Institute and Jim Zogby. So he is aware that Gaza war has to end. I don't want, if I want to go back to the rhetoric, it's like going to the Bible. Somebody said if the Bible were to be made into a movie, it would be a XXX movie, because of some of the things that are said in the Bible. So here, I can't compare utterances vis-a-vis actions of the Biden-Harris administration. But more importantly, I'm stating that Trump has evolved significantly vis-a-vis the Middle East, the Israel-Palestine question, vis-a-vis. I mean, he had no issues with Islam. The first summit, or the first place he went to after he was voted in as president or became president, he went to Saudi Arabia and met with the 50-some Arab and Muslim countries leaders. So it's hard to compare some words that were spoken in the past to actions that are being committed by the Biden-Harris administration. And we all agree that if Harris were to be elected as president, we will not see tangible change from what Biden is doing right now, and that is committing atrocities against our people. Now, most recently, the British were opposing the idea of allowing a ship laden with 300,000 barrels of jet fuel headed to Israel. I mean, the amount of aid that Israel is getting right now, the amount of political, diplomatic, and military support that Israel is getting right now is unimaginable. So, I think we need a change. We need a change. And whether we like some of Trump's attitudes or not, I'm telling you that Trump has evolved in terms of his thinking with regard to the Israel-Palestine conflict, with regard to the Middle East. And his evolution is to the best, and it served most our communities and our concerns.
Yeah, can I please say here, I don't think Saudi Arabia represents Islam or Muslims. A visit to Saudi Arabia doesn't mean that he respects.
Well, I mean, there were 50 countries there, so it's not just Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but I feel like because I think Atif also mentioned that I did not add to my comment on Islam why he should learn more about Islam. So I want to say that as a woman myself, I feel like Islam brings so much peace to my heart and my life in this chaotic world. And I'm someone who like rejected the society's image or explanation of what Islam is. And then I had to find it for my own. And the more I get into the essence of what Islam is, the more empowered I feel. And I feel like Islam has so much healing and empowerment that comes from within. And that just looking at the fact, first of all, the misrepresentation that Islam has been facing is unbelievable, and nobody really stood to clear the right image. And I think that comes for a reason. Why Islam is so misrepresented? Who wants to block this treasure of healing and peace from people? That's how I see Islam personally. I was so empowered by it. I learned so much to stand on my own feet and face society from within. If you look at the history of Islam, you can't deny this religion empowered people from nothing to rule the world for thousands of years. I mean, that's not a religion you can deny or you can just ignore or erase. It's a religion that you need to go back, revisit, and learn from. That's what I mean. And now,
Thank you for your...
he mentioned change, and I agree with that. We need change. The country needs change.
Thank you for your explanation. When we come back from a quick break, I will get back to Mr. Arikat about the question that he did not have a chance to answer, and that is whether or not the future political fate or future of Mr. Netanyahu depends on who will be in the White House in January. We will discuss that after the break.
With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics, according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600.
What's my ETA?
Your estimated time of arrival is 9:17.
I'm late. I'll have to punch it.
Speeding will save you just 1 minute and 36 seconds. It will also increase your risk of a crash, as well as the odds that you will be stopped and issued an expensive speeding ticket.
Yeah, but...
In 1 year, there were 22,000 speeding-related crashes in Michigan, resulting in 200 deaths.
If I had someone in the car with me, I'd drive slower. But it's just me.
This is not a logical response. Though you have no passenger, surrounding cars contain 27 others, including 5 children and 1 Labrador Retriever.
How do you know all this stuff?
I know everything, Kevin.
Your risk of a crash increases with every mile you drive over the speed limit. So slow down. Speed enforcement is happening now. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Are you going to start a restaurant or a grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31 185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood 734-744-9796.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM. I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to Radio Baladi. We are discussing Kamala Harris and the Middle East. Mr. Said Arikat, do you think the political future or fate of Prime Minister Netanyahu depends now on who will be in the White House in January?
Like I said, no, I don't believe that it will depend on who's in the White House. It has not depended on who's in the White House all along. Benjamin Netanyahu is probably one of the most clever politicians in history. He's been around for a very, very long time. He knows how to manipulate. He knows America. He knows how to manipulate America. He is actually, in many ways, a member of right-wing America, the Republican America, and so on. So he knows all this as far as the country is concerned. For his survival, Netanyahu knows that he sees his survival through the continuation of this war. So he will continue to kick the can down the road past the election. His feeling is that, if Trump comes to power, it'll be great for him because he then can extend his political life. If Harris comes to power, more than likely he will be able to do this. His problem is not with who is in the White House. His problem is the evidence on this, Atef. Back on March 8th, the day after Biden gave his speech, his State of the Union speech in Congress, he said that it's time. Basically, he said it's time for Netanyahu to go. 3 weeks later, we saw that Chuck Schumer, the majority leader in the Senate, basically called the same thing, and he's the highest-ranking Jewish American. He said that time for Netanyahu to go. There must be new elections and so on. Netanyahu survived both. He survived all this opposition. He survived all these demonstrations that are out on the streets and so on. So he knows how to manipulate. He has his coalition. He depends on right-wing sentiment. I mean, let's face it, Israeli society is a fascist society. It's a right-wing society. You can't change that. So these are the facts. Well, that's what Netanyahu depends on. We saw that Netanyahu was dealt a strategic defeat on October 7th that continues to this day. But he keeps achieving tactical victories, like assassinating Haniya, assassinating Fuad Shukr, killing the people, doing all these things that they have done. So he keeps holding this coalition together. So to answer your question, Netanyahu will continue to be there as long as he is able to hold on this coalition, the right-wing coalition, the Smotrich, Ben Gvir, the Likudniks, and so on, keeping the settlement activity ongoing and so on. If he's able to do that, he will continue. His political life will continue. If he's unable to do that, his political life will end. So he is not dependent on the White House, not the Harris, not Biden, not potentially Harris, and not potentially Donald Trump.
Mr. Dr. Bishara Bahbah, does Mr. Trump enjoy support among Arab governments, especially Gulf governments? And if he wins the White House, do you expect a revival of populism around the world?
I'm sorry, do I expect a revival of what? Populism, you said?
Yeah, he is known to be a populist president. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Well, I'm familiar, but I've never heard it in relation to Mr. Trump.
Okay, let's just answer the first part of the question. Do you think that Mr. Trump, enjoys support among Arab Gulf states, and why?
Okay. I will be happy to answer that, but let me answer very quickly the question that you addressed to my colleague, Mr. Arikat, with regard whether Netanyahu will be in power if this or that administration comes to power. I think Netanyahu's ability to stay as the head of the Israeli government is related directly to the war in Gaza. The moment that war ends, the moment Netanyahu will be probably forced out of power. In my view, if Trump comes to power, he would want an immediate end to the war in Gaza, and pushing Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza will also be pushing the end of Netanyahu as Israel's prime minister. That's one. Two, with regard to the issue of Trump's popularity in the Arab world, I mean, Mr. Trump is a businessman. He sees the world in terms of give and take. If I give you something, what are you going to give me in return? He sees the value of Arab countries, particularly the wealthy Arab governments. They buy arms like crazy from the United States and Europe. They spend on US products. So the relationship between the United States and the Arab world, particularly the Gulf countries, is a relationship that is more beneficial to the United States than it is beneficial to the Arab governments. Now, of course, the Arab governments are getting in return essentially a pledge of helping them to stay in power. And that is what they want. I mean, most leaders around the world, I can't really think of exceptions. The number one goal of those leaders is to remain in power, whether they're dictators or whether they get elected over time. So I think the relationship with the Arab world would be beneficial, primarily when it comes to finding a permanent solution to the Israel-Palestine question. That is the number one concern right now all over the world, in the Arab world, among Arab Americans, Muslim Americans. So ending the war in Gaza is really the most critical issue facing any new administration in the White House.
Okay, now we are
I would like to add something too.
We are coming. Go ahead, Hanan.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you a question, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that as long as Netanyahu has the Gulf leaders behind him, why would he need the US? That's the main point. Why would anyone? I mean, that's the main thing that keeps him going. The other thing is, I think Trump is good for America. Is when it comes to the Middle East, honestly, nobody can be the magic wand to solve historical problems that the Middle Eastern people need to step up and do something about. That's my point.
Okay, stay with us because I have a question for you still.
Okay.
Now that I was given an extra minute to end this program, Hanan, the schools, as you know, will reopen in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Do you expect a resumption of protests by university students? And what's the potential impact of that on the US election?
I think students definitely are coming, and universities are. I teach at a university, and I know in the fall I have 2 full classes to teach. In my classes that I taught, even in the past, in the middle of all the what happened on student camp in camping, and I didn't see a big disruption in my classes, so I feel like it's manageable. And how it will affect the election, I think maybe the young people are tired of the establishment and they want change. And whoever brings them change, I think will be more appealing.
So Kamala Harris doesn't represent change?
I know what you mean. She may look like she is a woman. She is a woman of color. And
I mean, she is a woman. She
yeah, I
doesn't
know,
look
I know.
like a woman.
I mean, to people, probably she will energize young people in terms of the change, but that's a superficial change.
Okay, I'm gonna closing by asking each one of you. I have 1 extra minute, as I said, and a closing statement of your own choice. Let's start with Mr. Arikat.
Well, I'd like to have my closing statement just by pointing out to the tragedy of the Palestinian people. I think whatever political activity, whatever political activism is there, should give a great deal of focus on the tragedy of the Palestinians. Now, the Palestinians are gaining support worldwide, and Israel is losing legitimacy. That's a good thing. But in the meantime, the tragedy goes on, and I think that whatever Arab Americans, Palestinian Americans, all the human beings can give to aid Gaza would be a good thing. But I think ultimately Gaza would win. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arikat. Now, Dr. Bahbah.
Well,
briefly, please.
Thank you very much. I believe that a Harris administration would be a continuation of the current Biden-Harris administration. And it would be a disaster for peace in the Middle East. It would be a disaster for Palestinians in Gaza. They will continue dying. I believe that there is a need for change. Trump will bring that change. He will put an end to the war in Gaza, and he will start rebuilding toward a peace process that leads to a two-state solution. This is my strong belief when it comes to what will happen with a new administration. Thank you.
Dr. Bishara Bahbah, thank you very much. I also thank Mr. Said Arikat, and also I extend my thanks to Ms. Hanan Daqqa. And I will conclude by reminding you that I will see you again the first Friday next month. Have a good weekend. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.